That's nice. Just give us another couple of days, another lower temperature. We'll do what I call Mexico City all year round. The best weather. Anyway, first of all, I'm Dr. Ferrara. I don't know if you guys remember me. Some of you guys don't know me. I've been in the community now here about 15 years. I own Atlanta Urgent Care in this area, which is located at the corner of Briarcliff and Claremont Road. Well, I like to tell people, we're literally in the QT parking lot. If you go into the QT, we're there. We're blue signs with not being. It's easy to remember. Just down the street, not even, actually 1.2 miles. I was an emergency physician by trade. Then I made the switch to one of the first places in Atlanta to have an urgent care. And so far, I think we see now close to 800,000 patients we have leaving the clinics. I truly believe in community, but also in patient care. So for 15 years, we resisted being bought by, you name the brand, you name the hospital, we resisted. So we kept the same prices and all that. I want to thank Victoria for letting us come here. And if you have any questions, any marketing material, my marketing person, Lynn, is back there. Anyway.
Carl, let me say one thing. I'm going to no, can you hear me? Probably. But I'm very grateful for him because during COVID, really, I could send people there for COVID tests. He was ahead of the game. And he was very patient with our members. He's been very good to our staff. He formed a relationship with Claremont Crest when they couldn't get anybody to come over there. He's got a medical van that he takes up there. And he has agreed, actually it was his idea, it wasn't mine, it was his. We're going to do a flu shot clinic here where everybody can come here to get their flu shot and not have to worry about going to, Kroger's or Publix or wherever. He's a good community partner. Say thank you.
Thank you for those kind words. Also, Claremont Place, the other senior centers was Kingsbridge, where we were able to get care there because we were the only, while everybody else said, okay, you have an appointment, don't have it. I told my colleague, Dr. Hall, let's become the Statue of Liberty, for everybody. Just have a place, so take care of everybody. He's afraid of COVID, but do it in a safe way. And we did it. I'm proud to say that even our staff at the height of when everybody was scared of COVID and lockdowns and we were seeing patients, none of our staff got infected with COVID. The ones that did, all did it because they all went on vacation with no masks, but not from our place. So I'm proud to say that. No, but going back to, I was going to my background. I'm originally from Italy, still Italian citizen. I still consider myself a guest here, and but very much Italian culture. So I like weather. We're talking about the weather. Just teaching the best weather I've ever seen is Mexico City. And why is that? Because all year round, 365 days a year, it gets the mornings from about 6 o'clock to about 10 is about 60 degrees. During the day, it goes from 70 to 80. And then after the sun goes down to 60. It only rains in September. It feels like spring. Literally, I'm going to make some flowers always been, feels like spring every day. Best weather I've ever seen. Best kept secret, too. In fact, Americans recently have started moving down. And the Mexicans are revolted, actually putting up signs saying, come to visit, but don't stay. The city's about to be let out. But anyway, so I'm here to talk about, health issues. The biggest one still is, as it is the last 2 years, and I wish it would move on for, is COVID, right? So COVID is still around us. The good news is that COVID has gone back. This is all my opinion, not CDC, okay? My experience. COVID has gone back to what I call its roots, the coronavirus. Remember, coronavirus, there's different strains, but the coronavirus was first identified about 4,000 years ago. And for years, it was called the common cold. And then something happened about 3 years ago and it became COVID-19, named after 2019. And it became a world phenomenon and killed many lives and changed, I think, the way we do things moving forward. However, it's genetically gone back to its roots. So what we're seeing now is no different than what we saw when was a common cold. Yes, can it still kill the immunocompromised? Yes, and the elderly, but the rate is no different than what was a common cold. That rate has not changed in my time. It's not changed. The good news is that where we did not have a vaccine for the common cold, the coronavirus, why? Because there's just a cost. Was nobody's going to put money into that vaccine because it's a virus. However, you can thank the United States, and I'm still waiting for the rest of the world to say thank you, America, to put the money into developing the vaccine, which saved millions and millions of lives around the world. So the vaccine is still valid. Why is that? Do we know why the vaccine is? One is it can keep you from getting the virus, okay? And number two, even if you're immunocompromised, it'll keep you from dying and being out of the hospital. So that is the effect of it. Can you still get it? Yeah. You're going to die likely die from COVID? No, for those who've been vaccinated. And if you want the proof of that, right after in 2021, when everybody, the vaccination came and there were people who were saying, well, I'm not going to get a vaccine, right? And the test case for it was Israel. So Israel got free vaccines. Why is that? Because they can keep track of every single citizen where they go. So they can keep track of where you are and if you go in a doctor's office. And so they get track of those who got the vaccines and those who didn't. And what they were to figure out is the ones who were getting COVID by overwhelming amount were the ones who didn't get the vaccines. So that was the ultimate proof right there. If anybody had any arguments against vaccines, but also all the deaths were coming from the ones not vaccinated. About 80% of people of Israel got vaccinated. 20% chose not to, but the deaths were coming only from those 20% in the cases. And then we found here in the United States, the same thing was happening. If you think about it, after the vaccine came out, for the following year, the overwhelming amount of deaths and hospitalizations were coming from non-vaccinated. So the vaccine does work. We know that. And also the CDC and scientists are telling us now that the booster, the more, especially the variants, by getting the booster, it also increases that chance of you not getting COVID or for sure not dying, getting sick. And I would say about the last 6 months, I've only sent one person with COVID positive to the emergency room. The rest, yes, did they get sick, but they look no different than a cold or bad flu, and they all did fine. I would say the majority, 90%, when they come in and we got COVID, they have the same symptom, a little bit of a sore throat, a little bit of body aches. They're fine 3 days later. So, but all of them got the vaccine. The ones who are sick, the ones that didn't get the vaccine, or the ones that had COVID before, they're less sick. So I think, we haven't tested everybody, but I'm pretty sure everybody gets it. Okay. I think the COVID booster works and the natural immunization works. Okay. So I encourage you to wear to get the COVID booster. The second thing, we're talking about the masks. I think the masks, especially in the crowd, almost every single case as the positives are coming now, it's always the same story. I went to a concert, I went to a crowd situations, big crowds. The masks, whether you're wearing the surgical masks you're wearing or N95, not only work against COVID overall, the N95s work very good, well, but also, lost my train of thought. The masks works are preventing, but the other thing they prevent, believe it or not, if you guys noticed in the last 3 years, there hasn't been that many flu cases. Strep throat cases have gone down. So I'm not just saying to make society wear masks just for that, but I think we should make it such that if you're sick, if you personally are sick, either isolate or wear the masks. You're in a home. But I think I'm glad we're getting back to society. Like I told you, I live in Italy. I mean, I live here, but I also live in Italy. I go back almost every few weeks, and I just got back. And there in Europe, I can tell you, they moved on. No masks. No, they're promoting the vaccines, but they're not testing. So if you got a cold or whatever, unless you're really sick, they're not going to test. If you go to school, if you're sick, it's up to your parents whether they want to keep you home or not. They said, yeah.
What are the percentage of people that are vaccinated?
Say that again?
What are the percentage of people that are vaccinated in it?
Actually, the same as here. There were just as many people as opposed, but the cases are low and the deaths are really low. And they were looking at deaths. I mean, this is my country, the highest percentage early on. If you remember, you kept reading about Italy, Northern Italy, where everybody was having 1% or less than 1% deaths of those caught COVID. Italy was having 1 in 10. And there were many reasons for that. It became the epicenter for the world. They learned from that, but it's just Germany, France, you don't need, before you remember, you have to get, if you travel abroad, you have to get a COVID test, you have to show you're vaccinated. Ironically enough, the United States is the only one that now requires, for non-citizens, proof of vaccine and a COVID test. So it's amazing, a lot of people are not citizens, but they're immigrants, they have a legal green card, resident card. And many of them who decided not to get vaccinated went to visit their home countries, whether it was Poland, Russia, or Mexico, and then decided on vacation this summer, many got stuck in their country, not realizing they couldn't get back in. So they were forced to make a decision, now they're there 3 or 4 months, get the vaccines and then come back, which is kind of interesting. But I think the United States, we are gonna move on from this. We have to learn to live with the virus. We have to learn to live with it. And so far, I think if we get vaccinated and continue to, it's just like we do with the flu. We learn to live with, think about this, the flu killed just as many people. The time was called the Spanish flu, which Spain still doesn't like that name because they didn't start it. They just got the name because it was the first time they talked about it was in Spain. They said it actually started in Kansas City. And they called it the Spanish flu. And Spain is still telling the World Health Organization to change it. There were more deaths then. And what that went on for 4 years, with no vaccines. But we learned to live with it. And I think we'll learn to live with it now. I think, as long as you get vaccinated and be smart about it, you're going to be fine. Okay? Good.
Do you have any insight on those that are opposed to getting vaccinated and what they are actually basing that on? Because there's so many, even the millennials and the young people that I be around, they don't trust the vaccine. Do you have any basis on why?
Many reasons. Many reasons. The ones who are least vaccinated, believe it or not, are the Hispanics and African Americans. And I think that's for historical reasons, from the Tuskegee incidents, not trusting government. And a lot of it, I think a lot have to do with social media. I remember seeing things on social media. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like one of the early things was it gives you Bell's palsy. Perhaps, but that was the basis for many things. Oh, and, the other one was, well, it wasn't tested, usually test a vaccine for 10 years, usually 6 years. This was tested 8 months. And I agree with that. There's a lot of unknowns on it. And I have the same questions, yes, right now there's no side effects. What about long-term? That we still don't know. But what's the alternative? Think about it. You have to do what's called risk versus benefits. Okay. Right now, I was talking with the gentleman I was the county commissioner, the gentleman before, And we're talking about vaccines, you know, risk versus benefits. Everybody talks about the shingle vaccine, Would I get it? No. What are the odds of you getting shingles? Pretty small. And if you do, so what? You live, you know what? But there's a worse risk in the vaccine, right? But in the COVID vaccine, it was a matter of life or death. You know, yes, people have they died from the vaccine? Yes. Have they had side effects? Yes. But what are the number? If you don't do it, how many millions are going to die? Okay. Same thing with polio. I mean, I'm not old enough to remember, but there was a lot of polio, and the vaccine. You know, I think the best was a television show. I don't know if you guys know the magicians, Penn and Teller. They had the best example how a vaccine works versus risks and benefits. Okay, so it took bowling pins and they put them in a room like this, and it took bowling balls, and they knocked out all the pins. But then they said what the vaccine does is they put glass in front of it, and most of the pins were left up. They threw lots of bowling balls, but some fell. You know, it's risk benefit. Most people survived. Okay, so we still don't know the aftermath of vaccines. So far, I mean, I feel fine. You guys are here, right? And yes, there's going to be some things. There's risk versus benefits to everything. Okay, I think that the other thing you were talking about, a lot of people not wanting to get the vaccine, had to do a lot. Rather than being scientific, the debate got political. I mean, I literally remember the current president of the United States, the vice president, saying, I'm not going to get the vaccine because the other guy did it. He literally said, then he gets it off and goes, why did I get the vaccine? That left a lot of people confused. On one hand, you're saying, I'm not going to get it because it's experimental. And at the other hand, he's promoting it. So that confused a lot of people. So I think that had a big thing. I just say it like it is. I'm sorry. Any other questions?
You made a statement, I didn't understand exactly what you said. You said something like, I believe everybody has COVID, had COVID.
The what?
I didn't understand what your word was. You said, I believe everybody has COVID.
No, I see what you mean. I think at some point, everybody's been exposed to COVID. I think the COVID virus, whether they got sick or not, I think everybody has had it. I'm willing to bet you, but it's not worth testing, that if we were to get, right now we're based, the number of COVIDs based on the actual testing, like they put the nasal swab in your nose. And that's where we're basing the numbers at. And then they extrapolate saying, okay, half of those people didn't get tested, so that's, I mean, you have it. But in reality, I think if you base it on actual antibody tests when you measure in the blood, I think you're going to find that, if I were to guess, more than 95% of people in this country and the world have had it. I really believe that.
Antibody test, you know, that's curious. A bunch of us had that test. You know, if you had 95%, you know, positive there, you were really safe. You were safe.
And you still are. Actually, you still are.
So how come they don't do those kinds of tests?
One is the two things. One is the expense of it. Think about the expense of it. Number one. Number two is the logistics of it. If you were to think about how long it took to vaccinate everybody. You know, if you had to do it at the beginning, it took, and this is in my opinion, it was not done right. Okay, it was not done right. But the logistics of it, it'll take a long time. I think, you know, going back to it, they abandoned the plan Warp Speed early on, and Warp Speed had what I was ex-military, had a military profile to it. And they were going to come in, large camps, you know, it was not going to be centers like this, military doing it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, because you don't have to worry about workers, you have the military. That was the plan, the logistics of the delivery. You know, the United States, they say it has the best military in the world, but actually one of the things the United States does better than the other military, and I can tell you I was in Army intelligence, it was that we have better logistics. We know how to move stuff and do things, able to put up a hospital, a tent, I mean, easily the military could have gone to Mercedes Dome and done the whole city of Atlanta, all millions in 1 week, but it wasn't like that. So imagine not trying to draw blood and send the blood and getting the right blood test back. Yeah, that's the reason.
Okay, so if you feel that you still have, you're lucky enough to have the revenues.
Oh,
Should we be getting that, booster that's the Omicron created?
yes, the answer is yes, because right now what we're finding with this one, unlike the polio you get one time, is the more you sort of tap, especially mRNAs, vaccines, the more you tap at the system, the more antibodies increases. It creates more memory for the other viruses. The answer so far, what they're telling us, the research is yes, get the booster.
And it doesn't, if you have those antibodies, it doesn't mean that they're gonna attack other parts of your body, you know, because you have an immune system will attack you, your own self.
No, so you're talking about what you're referring to as autoimmune,
Yeah.
is those antibodies going to turn? Nobody knows yet at this point. It's interesting. Nobody knows. The only thing that we found is with what they call long COVID, right? So those antibodies, really what's happening, they're sticking around, your antibodies, and they're causing inflammation. So we don't, that's what we call, that's what I think it is, long COVID, as people talk about. Yeah, I don't sleep well, I got brain fog, or I still got a little bit of shortness of breath, or chest pain. And then we see that actually at the clinic. And that's what we're seeing though, they're all going back. They talk about fatigue for months, or I can't smell for a while. I lost my taste of smell, that's coming back. So nobody knows yet. I think that's to be seen. Those are decisions you got to get. The CDC on there has all the side effects they've seen. Okay, every single one that goes from what your typical localized reaction, a little bit of fatigue, a little bit of a headache, to hearing loss, vertigo, a little bit of memory loss, but those are rare. Again, it's COVID. Okay, what are the risks of dying right now if you don't get the vaccine? And those are things that you can get daily on the CDC. I said, okay, you get the vaccine, but if I get COVID on this age group, yes, I'm going to get sick. But if you really, right now, I was reading this morning that the CDC considers vaccination if you have 2 vaccines. So if you have 2, it doesn't count the boosters. All they say about the booster, it's going to make it better. That's all they're saying. Just like we get the flu. A good analogy is the flu vaccine, right? Why do we get it every year? Because it keeps changing. So what they do is they take a best guess at how it changed and how to combat. And it's a guess.
So the reason I brought it up is that because I have the immune system, but I also feel like I have a little bit of long COVID. Because I think maybe I was exposed right, 2 or 3 months before the vaccine being out. But I didn't realize that it was, this pure chronic.
But if there is ways, I would, talk to your doctor. They do have clinics. I think everyone has one. We have access to one to Georgia Clinic, and there's others. Piedmont has one. They call them long COVID clinics. Because one of the things is a lot of people think they have long COVID, and it turns out to be something else. And that's the advantage of going there. Like I always like to say, you cannot miss the tree in the forest.
I'd like to question what you said about shingles and the shingles vaccines. I think it's a lot more common than you.
It is common, but not enough to get to vaccine. It is common, but it's not everybody. The what?
It's a horrible thing. You have a long-lasting effect, and it's the most painful thing. So why wouldn't you recommend getting that double?
Because that horrible thing you're talking about, it's like 1 in astronomical number. Yes, it does happen. I have seen it, but it's not 1 in 10. It's not 1 in 100. It's not 1 in 1,000. Most people get the pain, some pain for a little bit. Most people just have very little pain, goes away with Tylenol and Motrin. And to go through the vaccine, that's fine. It's a choice. You have to wait the risk. What? There's nothing wrong with the vaccine other than just the expenses. Is it really necessary? Is there something for that one, what you're talking about? It's almost like they scare. To me, I truly believe that the pharmaceutical company, that vaccine company that makes it, is trying to scare us. Oh, it's gonna be horrible, it's gonna be this, it's gonna be that. I'm telling you, 30 years I've seen shingles, most people do fine. Most
I know
people
my
do fine.
mother had it, and she was not.
You know, it's just most people do fine. You know, I challenge everybody in this room to find somebody. No, I challenge everybody out there to find somebody who says, oh, this was horrible, I had it for the rest of my life. It is rare. So is it worth it to vaccinate 1 million people for that rare thing? It's just my personal opinion. I'll doctors tell you different.
Dr. Pro, let me say something really fast. I was saying this on behalf of Maggie, so a lot of people live here. For a lot of our seniors, they live in a senior living facility where they're in close contact with each other. I think it's most important for people who live, and I know this only from what I'm told. I asked Maggie today to hear this, is that people who live in those high rise or other kind of living rooms, so I think it is important for them to continue to follow precautions, to wear their masks when they're in group activity.
Yeah, I mentioned that.
When they go to class, when they play cards in the hallway, socialize, and if they get the vaccines, because we've had just about everybody who has had COVID this year live in one of those buildings.
Yes,
I mean to say.
and I agree with social. I mentioned that wear masks when you're in close context to keep it, especially if you know it's going around in your building. So things are communicable, like flu. That's a disease you can pass, right? So COVID you can pass. Shingles you cannot pass, right? So like monkeypox you cannot pass by just walking in a room. But things like COVID and occasionally we get phone calls with the outbreaks at certain centers. But I think so far this past couple of weeks we haven't seen the main centers having an alert stuff.
First of all, thank you for speaking. Would you be sure to have your microphone?
No problem.
This is just curiosity. And it may be semantics, but we're talking about a vaccine. But the vaccines with which we grew up were the polio, the smallpox. But a true vaccine, you don't get it at once. Are we getting, your possibility of getting polio or whatever is gone because you got the vaccine?
Yes.
But we have to keep getting this. Is this because it's changing and evolving?
It's changing and evolving. That's what we're finding. And that was true of it's not new because the corona, remember, at the beginning, I started with the coronavirus. And the coronavirus has been around for 4,000 years, exactly for the reason, just like the flu, the virus evolves, it changes. So just let's go back. What is a virus? A virus, if you were to go strictly look at life from a pure point of view of survival and reproduction, then the most advanced form of life is a virus. It's not humans, it's not anything else, is a virus, because it's able to replicate itself and reproduce. And it's learned to survive by changing it. So it's learned that, okay, I got a way to kill you now, but I'm going to change, right? So the virus, things like coronavirus keeps changing. Other viruses do not, but this one does. And we've known about that beforehand. It's not like let's go back to the word using coronavirus, common cold. We've known about it, that it's constantly changing. And CDC and everybody else in the world has not warned because the threat has not been to when it became the COVID-19. Yes, you do get, in the news, you hear that one story, that 12-year-old kid died, or that doctor, that nurse, or that person. But it is rare. It's one of those things that we as humans, as society, decided that we got to live with that. We're not going to stop airlines. We're not going to. Before COVID came, how many people wore masks? We were willing to take that risk, even with influenza, which had at the last count had what is 0.59 chance of mortality, which is really low. We as humans and governments, that's actually who makes the rules, as governments, and the world decide, you know what, we got to live with it. We got to take the chances that some people are not going to survive this. Okay. And it's just, we've taken that chance with the coronavirus, but they've studied every year. They know, and there's different variations of it. And now the reason you see it in the news because of coronavirus. That's, but we've known about it. It's going to constantly mutate. And I think the word is still out whether, are they going to do a flu combined? Right now we have the quadrivalent flu shot, right? Why is that? Because it has 4 different kinds of flus and MRSA and all the other viruses in there. Are we going to see I don't know exact Latin word, but pentate vaccine, which has 5 things in it, will have the flu and COVID combined? We don't know that yet. And if the word is still out, whether we have to go back and continue COVID boosters. Right now, the CDC and the scientists are saying yes, but that could change in a couple of years.
If we have the corona for 4,000 years, what happened in China?
I do not know that. Somebody has to ask the Chinese. I mean, there's a lot of speculations. There's a lot of speculations. I mean, there's something that, as they call weaponized. Yeah, there was no doubt about it, that's what they were doing. That part of it, that they did not deny. The question is, how do we get out? So you have to ask them that.
The last question is, I heard you say it's genetically gone back to its roots. What is the root?
Genetically what?
You said it was the virus, the COVID is genetically going back to its roots.
Yeah, what I mean that it's the severity of it is starting to behave the way it's shifted, is starting to behave like the common cold. It's starting to behave like that. If you think about it in the news, and I don't think it's because of politics, we used to see so many deaths have died, so many deaths. When was the last time, really? Raise your hand, you heard that. You haven't, right? And when was the last time you heard about the coronavirus, the common cold, the deaths? And nobody can remember that. So that's what I'm saying. We've gone back to that. The mortality rate of COVID right now, it's gone back to the same as when it was. And I would love to see, based on the flu statistics this year, if it's, which is more now, the COVID or the flu. That's why I said, get the flu vaccine. That's one thing that we can't argue about. I mean, the flu vaccine, despite, us getting flu, there's still only 20-30% of Americans get it. And I'm thinking all these years, if everybody got the flu vaccine, we still have the world, we still get the flu. It hasn't been as much effort into the flu as we've been putting to COVID.
When you bring the seasonal flu shots here, will it be quadrivalent?
Yes, quadrivalent, they also want to bring the high dose. There's still a debate on that, because all high dose means it's double the dose. So regular quadrivalent right now, if you go by dose, it's 0.5 cc's, it's a certain amount. And they recommend for seniors, the high dose, which really, when you look at it, it's really double that dose. I don't think it creates any worse harm, And I'm not to think the regular flu vaccine does the same, but somehow someone at CDC said the high dose is what works better.
So I just asked for 1 dose of public because I was thinking maybe I didn't have chronic disease, and that was in the newspaper, actually. The Atlanta Journal, it's the one time that if you had any epidemic or something, that you should not have 4 dose. Like, is it called 4 dose or?
No, right now, and that's a good point you bring up. So if you guys, for those of you who haven't had the booster, if you guys go, it's okay to ask while you're there, hey, can I get the flu shot at the same time? You can get it at the same time, right? You can get it the week after. So you can get other vaccines. So if you got to get a tetanus shot and the booster, that's fine. So there's no interference. So don't a lot of times I get asked, well, I just got the COVID booster, I cannot get the flu shot, or vice versa. I got the flu shot and I cannot get the COVID. So it's okay, as long as you guys are not sick. Any other questions?
I want to get this shingles straight. You have said that it's not a bad vaccine, we just don't all need it.
Yeah, if you have to look at the numbers, everybody has to make an
Okay.
individual decision.
But it's not a bad vaccine.
No, it's not. There's no side effects, there's nothing to it. It's more, my thing is more the cost of it, but if you have Medicare, they cover it. It's sort of creating, the way I look at it, they created a crisis by offering where it wasn't before.
Thank you.
That's it. That's all I'm saying. From a medical point of view, I think there's more things we need to get vaccines for.
I just want to speak on the sheet. Like, you know, like we're all grown adults, and so we make the decision for ourselves. But I didn't have health insurance, and so when I went to get one shingles shot without insurance, they charged me $120.
Yeah.
So until you don't have coverage and you're not having to pay,
But I
it is
think-
an expense, but you do have to pay.
But the booster is free. So even when you have Medicare, have no insurance. So the booster is free. The vaccine for the flu is pennies on the dollar what Medicare pays. So that is cost effective. Not only that, but save, keeps you from getting sick and saves your life. It can save your life.
Could you talk a little bit about monkeypox?
Sure. Monkeypox, and I think the CDC is going by way, making the same mistake as what they did with HIV. They didn't want to label it for what I think it truly is. And I'll say it over again, the news won't tell you. It is only, right now we're seeing it, men who have sex with other men. We're talking about very, very close contact. Okay, so if we're in a room, none of you guys here or the world have the situation where they see it in kids has been in healthcare workers who happen to be men who had sex with other men who were infected. A light touch probably is not going to do it, but it's very close physical contact. Okay, so monkeypox to me should be a non-issue. The reason it's grown in the United States because the warning is about monkeypox to you, to you, to you, to you, to you, but not gone to the people who are really high risk for it, to go to them and say, you're at risk, be careful, check for lesions. That is the problem. That's the reason it's grown. Okay, so monkeypox to me is a non-issue, but even suppose we get it, there's no treatment for it, goes away by itself within a couple of weeks to a month. And all it is just rashes. Okay,
Present scenario.
Sure.
A lot.
love those.
When I walk in the room, and it would be all, just put most of them around 18 number. I'm the only one with the mask on. And they know the BJ wants to, she got the mask. Some of them might put them in,
True.
but it's not understanding. We're wearing masks. I'm not protecting myself by wearing this mask. I'm protecting you because I'm not walking around.
Right.
Like you said.
And that is
I
true.
don't have COVID, but I don't have symptoms that manifest in my life to be COVID.
But one of the way to do it is, like you said, they have to respect it. I think it's okay to ask. I mean, a lot of times it can be peer pressure. You said there's 3 people there, it's 3 against 1. And it's okay to say, hey, I'm here, would you mind putting on a mask? Or if you don't have it here, let's go upstairs, whatever the masks are. It's okay to do that. Like here, I noticed when I came in, believe it or not, there was a sign that said mandatory masks. And everybody followed it, am I right? Yeah, everybody followed. I even followed it. I carried a mask. Living and followed it. But the idea is that it's respect. You can't have somebody say, something. That's fine. Everybody's right to their opinion, which is great. And just like you respect them, they got to respect you.
But if everybody where you are is not wearing it, the protection is hard.
Well, you have a choice, it's to ask them to do it. If they don't, say, you know what, I'm not participating in this. Just like, when COVID was a big risk. A lot of people did not go out. Why? Because it shows them to participate in being around everybody else. And that's what you got to do. But the good news is that it's slowly dying down. Slowly dying down. We're going to see a little bit of a peak in the winter. Why? Like you said, we're in closed buildings. The weather's changing. We're indoors more, right? Right? We're indoors more. So that's slowly changing. But it will get better. We humans, we've been around, what, 1 billion years? And still going to be around. We have spawned every single virus, every single catastrophe you can imagine. How many of you guys remember George Carlin from the 1970s? Okay, you guys, he has, I mean, I won't say I don't know if he was a genius, but he certainly predicted about the earth. You guys go, if you get a chance to listen to speech about humans versus planet Earth. You know, it's like humans have survived. We've done well. Okay. Any other questions?
I just like to make a statement.
Sure.
I just want to say that if you're looking for a doctor who is kind, who listens to you, and who it has attention to detail, this is your doctor. He's excellent. Last year I almost died. He saved my life. I would not be here today if it weren't for him.
You're too kind. Thank you.
No, I'm not. You saved my life.
Thank you.
Particularly during COVID, when people couldn't get out, he showed up. You know, and I think for me, that was the biggest right. All of us be there. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Victoria.
I have a general question.
Sure.
Nothing to do with what we
Sure.
were discussing. Something that's raging in my family. Is food medicine? What do you think?
Yes,
Thank you.
absolutely.
Thank you.
So the other thing is actually, I'll tell you a different, I know you don't want to prolong it, but I'll tell you to say that in a different way. Food can be a disease also. Meaning eating the wrong kinds of food will give you certain diseases. I need an example. We had one of our market persons not here, but she was rheumatoid arthritis, a lot of pain, a lot of joint pain, and was going through a lot of medicines. And I said, there's got to be a better way. Let's change your diet. I can tell you, it's been now close to 10 years, has not had the same issues. So,
change the diet.
well, a lot of it is things that I call the inflammatory, anti-inflammatory diet. There's a lot of things, for example, in your stomach that you eat and gives you GERD, right? So people have GERD. So if you eat tomatoes, that makes it worse. Coffee, but just change it, different kinds, not tomatoes, different brand, all of a sudden you feel better. So yes, food can harm you, but food, the vitamins and nutrients. I mean, we as humans are designed not to go to McDonald's and things. We're designed to eat and survive, and we need things like protein, right? Why do we need protein? Because you need muscles, because otherwise your muscles, if you don't eat protein, your muscle's gonna wither. If you don't have some kind of sugar or juice, your brain's not gonna function. So we need food to survive. It is a medicine. It is, I agree with you, food is medicine. Everything we do is based around food. You just have to have the right kinds of foods.
Would you differentiate between processed and unprocessed?
Yeah, I mean, processed food, and we're talking about potato chips and sugar, highly processed. Yeah, it creates obesity and higher diseases. There's no doubt about that. And you have in societies, we don't have any societies anymore in the world that are not exposed to what we call manufactured food or grown food. But even as far as back in the 70s, there were some communities in South America and in Africa that raised their own food and have been eating the same food as before. So they had no sugar to pour in their coffee. They didn't buy milk from the store. And it's interesting. I would love to go back and see those statistics. Like they used to say that they had lower diseases because they were eating what's. There was a guy named actually Melvin Turner, Dr. Melvin. He was a professor at Emory. He's now at Harvard, and he had a book called The Tango Wing, and he argued that what those people ate was a genetically programmed diet, because as people are less sick, they don't seem to have colds. But also somebody can make an argument and say, well, you know, they're not exposed to other people, so they don't have viruses and colds and flus and COVID. You can make that argument too. But, you know, there is genetically programmed diet. So, you know, there was trial and error, meaning certain things we eat, we can die because we're poisoned. Other things we do. Other things made us feel better. I mean, you're talking, I mean, I wanted the worst example because I love food. I love to eat. I mean, if it wasn't, I'll eat dinner, you know, I love food.
Well, only a wimp would ask this question, but, are they still, when they do the swab, when they stick it all right up in your eyeball, or how are people trained? I have to say, when I've been to
Okay.
their facility,
First of
I
all,
go there, the gentleness.
now you make a good point. First of all, the nose does not go this way. So, okay, so everybody thinks that they go up this way. So the nose, believe it or not, even though it's shaped this way, the actual hole, if you were to look at somebody, just look at somebody's hole, actually goes straight back. This way. This way, it connects to the mouth. So to be done properly, they have to go straight back. If they do that, it doesn't feel like they go to your brain. It's because it goes straight back and there's an opening straight to your mouth. I think they should go back and then swerve it around. You get better, more accuracy, a lot more accuracy. So I think it's when people are doing it that they think that it's going up. But I think we're out of time.
I have a question. One of the members didn't want to ask you, and I told him that I would ask him.
No problem.
Michael, it's your friend. He said that one of the points he wished you could make, that 80% of people that died over the age of 65 and they were old. Is that true?
So actually, most of the people that died, I wouldn't say were over 65, they were over 85, they were new crimes. Everybody, not everybody, but most people, the majority, and I'm not sure if it's 80% or 70, were over 80. First of all, they were over 85, not 65. And number two, they had some other major illnesses. Fortunately, the ones that you said had a good immune system, right? Survived. You know, why did you have the 90? Well, not everybody's, first of all, not everybody over 85 died, not everybody had diseases died. You had 100-year-olds who got COVID and survived. When you go back and look at the death rate overall, it wasn't, it was high, but not as bad as it wasn't 10% of the population, it wasn't 1%, it's less than that. And, but the ones are most risk, the ones who are most risk were the ones over 85, and those immunocompromised, like congestive heart failure, lung disease. Lung disease was the most biggest one. And obesity, those two, because why? Because it affects the lungs. Here we have decreased breathing capacity, and so to make things worse. But overall, I mean, but then how many healthcare workers who are healthy died? A lot, more than usual. You know, I had a lot of colleagues and nurses, nurses who passed away from getting it. They were perfectly healthy. But then some were obese, you know. So right now, I think the business factors is age over 85, actually, I think. And the immunocompromised and some major illnesses and obesity. Why the obesity, I do not know, but obesity is one of them. Okay. But you guys overall look very healthy, everybody. That's pretty good. Don't you guys agree? You guys are here, you guys are active. And I tell you, living in a retirement community or coming to a place like this prolongs your life. It does prolong your life. And people who live at home, like let's say you live alone and their spouse passes away, or they say, oh, my daughter's just next door. Ironically enough, if you look at the longevity of life versus those, we put, you know, my mother in a community center, a you know, adult living center like this, they live longer actually. As much as they say they fight and they drag, oh, my kids are throwing me, they actually live longer. Why? Because they got humans around. So it's very important not to isolate yourself. Interact, do play cards, you know, do all that. There's just, that's when you get to be over 65. That's a huge factor. The other one is walking. How many of you guys walk?
They got champion walkers.
Yeah. And walking, what do I mean by walking? It doesn't have to be 30 minutes. It's 30 minutes, right? But not consistent. You do that, that's great. But if you do 10 minutes in the morning or 10 minutes walk around the house, those people, if you do that from starting age 30, actually live 10 years longer. Think about that. 10 years longer by walking. Those are two things you can do and be around other people. That's why I think this community center is important. It actually prolongs your life. because you're interacting with other humans. Okay? Those are things the medical books won't tell you, and the news won't tell you. Okay?
Everybody, Dr. Brock answer all your questions. He'll be back. He's gonna be back. This isn't a one-time deal, and we're gonna set up flu shot clinic. And if there's another situation where we think we have a lot of questions, tell me, and I'll see if I can get back if he's available. He's always very.
Also, if you need any goodies or my cards, they're there. You can always personally email me. I answer all my emails. Okay?
Thank you.
You're right, I'm not used to speaking with a mic. You're the singer. That was a good question.